Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at Village Green, which is a small box card game designed by Peer Sylvester and published by Osprey Games. This one accommodates 1 to 5 players and takes around 30 minutes to play. So set up, the game is going to look like this. We have these 2 decks of cards and 3 cards of each of those decks laid out. So you've got the blue deck here, which have these scoring cards on them, and which is going to be the way you're going to score points. And you're going to have these green cards here, which with the actual icons on them, which relate to these scoring objectives. Each player is going to have their own little tableau of cards, which is going to make a 4x4 grid of cards. In the top left, you're going to have this village card here, which doesn't really do much apart from offering you a point if you don't use its benefit by the end of the game. But I'll touch on that a little bit later. On the top row, you have 3 randomly allocated scoring cards, and the idea is that you're going to build a 4x4 grid of cards with, again, these scoring cards on the top row and in the leftmost column, and in these 9 spaces in between, that's where you're going to be putting these green cards. Each player is going to be given 3 green cards at random to consist of their hand, and then the game is going to begin. So on a player's turn, they can take one of 2 possible actions, the first of which is to draw a scoring card and place it on their little village here. And when you take those scoring cards, if it's not a solo game, you can actually overlap the pre-existing scoring cards here. So let's just take a look at some of these scoring cards. So these cards here are looking for these yellow roses in this column, and each one of those is going to give you 3 points each. You've got the colour combination card here, which you're looking for a set of each of the flowers in the same colours, and you're going to get the relative amount of points here, potentially losing points if you get certain colours. This one here is looking for lawns, so that's going to correspond to a card like this. And again, the more lawns you have, you get a massive potential up to 8 points if you have 3 lawns in this column. So yeah, you're going to be looking at objectives here and trying to build towards something with these green cards. And of course, that is going to be the second option, which is to draw a green card, either from the 3 face-up ones, or you can take one from the deck here face down and add it to your hand. So let's just say, for example, I'll take this lawn card because I know that I'm looking for lawn cards for that particular criteria, and then I'm instantly going to replace that card with one from the stack. So now, of course, I'd have 4 cards in my hand, and I'm going to choose to play one of those cards into my village. So let's go for a no-brainer one here and shove my first lawn into this column here, because I want to be building towards lawn cards for this lawn scoring objective. And then it's going to go on to the next player. However, if it's a solo mode, of course, it's going to be your turn again. We're going to do the same thing. So let's take another card here. So maybe I'll go for this card here. And I'm going to go for this one here, which is going to score me a point for each of my building cards in this particular row now. So again, I'm going to replace the that card from the stack, and then it'll be my next turn again. And I'm going to be drawing a card from the center here, and perhaps I would play this this building card here, because this row is now looking for building. So I'm going to get 2 points for each building in this row. However, whenever you place a building, you must immediately draw a scoring card, again, from either the face-up ones or from the face-down ones. So let's just say I'll take this one here and aim towards building something in the future, these lily cards. However, something I do need to touch on is the restrictions in which you can place these cards or not, because this is actually quite a restrictive game, and you have some quite dominating criteria that you can, or when you can and can't place cards. So first off, when you start placing cards next to each other, they have to be of either the matching flower type or of the matching colour. So I could place this, for example, because that particular flower matches this flower. I could place it here because these lawn cards don't have any restrictions on them at all. However, in the future, I could not place this this lily card here because, again, it's not matching the flower type or the colour type. I could put it here like this. I could put this card here like this. I could even put this card here like this, because this one is matching this flower type, this colour, and this flower type as well. So again, the more cards you build out here, you're going to find yourself backed into a bit of a corner, and sometimes you'll need very specific cards in order to place them onto your tableau. One time during the game, you can choose to flip your village card over like so, and sacrifice the point on it in order to either wipe these wipe a row of these cards out and draw a new 3 if you don't like the options available to you, or you can actually choose to go past the restriction of not being able to place on top of the cards already there. So let's just say, for example, I really didn't like this card. I could choose to put this one on top of it and overlap the existing one. And then the game is going to end once somebody has built their whole tableau of village cards here, or until one of these decks run out. So once that end game has been triggered, you're going to take a look at all your cards and score up accordingly. So the first thing you're going to look at is if your village card has been flipped or not. So in my case, it has been flipped, so I'm not going to get the points on the reverse side of it. And then I'm going to go through all the different cards systematically and see what my score is going to be. So this one here, the Rose Garden, is looking for 3 points for every yellow rose in that column. So I've got 2 yellow roses here for 6 points. I'm looking for a colour combination of specific flower arrangements here, which I haven't achieved, so I'm not going to get any points for that one. This one here is looking for lawns, so again I'm going to get lawn points. I've only got 1 lawn here for a single point, according to this card. You've got this man-made features here, which is looking for buildings. So here you can see I've made 2 buildings, which is actually going to score me negative points because I was maybe being a bit optimistic there, trying to go for the 3, but I couldn't get that achieved. This one here is looking for these flowers here, which again I haven't achieved, so no points there. And the final one here, this Symmetrical Forestry, is looking for every 2 of each type of tree is going to get you 2 points. So I've achieved that twice here for 4 points. Now all of these river cards or these pond cards are going to give you 2 points automatically. So I've got 4 points there. And something I should have mentioned as well, although these lawn cards don't really do much in terms of other than relating to these scoring cards, you can actually choose to lay cards on top of them if you can, as long as you abide by the restrictions. So this would still be an illegal placement because it doesn't match this particular colour or flower type. But if you did, you can place on top of lawn cards. So that's how it's going to play. Obviously, the player with the most points at the end of the game is going to be the winner. And if you're playing this solo mode, which is pretty much identical, you're just going to check your score against this little chart in the book to see how well you've done. So let's talk about how I feel about Village Green. So first off, I like how simple this game is. I generally like puzzle style games, and I like the fact this one is pretty much sticks true to that formula. It doesn't try to bite off more than it can chew and be anything that it's not trying to be. So I like the fact that it's just got 2 very simple actions, either and take from this deck and play it automatically, add a card from your hand and then play a card to your green here. So very simple, just draw a card and play a card formula, and that doesn't ever kind of go off the rails, and you can never get confused about what you're going to do on your turn. I also like the variability here and the variety of the different types of scoring cards. There's a big deck here, and every game you're going to have to build towards something else in order to get the most points out of them. And it's all about mapping up these different crosshairs where these things meet to try and get the optimal amount of scoring. Trying not to make them conflict with each other, trying to make them all harmonise and get as many points as you can. But at the same time, you are always kind of put in a straitjacket because you have to abide by those placement restrictions of either being next to the same colour or next to the same flower type. And that is probably one of the main things that I took away from this game, was just how restrictive this game is. So maybe from a video like this, it looked a bit easier than it is in person, but you'll often and very frequently find yourself put in a position where you just can't play anything that you want to play, and you're going to have to start building towards something else. But of course, the more cards you're placing out there, you can't actually overlap them unless you sacrifice your village card once in the game. So it is a very tight puzzle, and you have very little margin for making errors. Now, I'm not saying that's a negative thing, because it certainly isn't, but if you want a more breezy, relaxed kind of game, then be prepared for some frustration, and this game isn't maybe what you think it's going to be, because it is a very tricky, tight little puzzle. I also like the fact that you do have some mitigation of what you're going to play, because you do have a hand of 3 cards, so even when you're drawing a card from the green cards here, you don't have to play that one automatically. You can keep stuff back in your hand for future turns, and obviously build for things a bit later. So you do have a bit of mitigation there, and some play in when you're going to actually place these cards and commit them to your 4x4 grid. I think the balance of the game is generally good. You've got some stuff here that of course is going to pull you in different directions. Some are going to score you negative points. But again, that kind of goes back to your the way you've actually activated things, because, here, as I said earlier, I did want to start building towards these 3 cards, but I couldn't get it achieved in time because one of those endgame triggers would have happened before I got my 3rd building down on this spot. So, you do find yourself getting some negative points at time, but that's perfectly fine and all part of the optimization puzzle. So I think in terms of balance and stuff, this game doesn't really have any issues. I think generally the most efficient and the person who's worked out their puzzle the most, the best, is going to be the winner. The time investment of the game is pretty excellent, to be honest. This game does only take around 30 minutes to play. In a solo mode or in a 2-player game, you can get it done quicker than that. So it certainly doesn't outstay its welcome, and it stays within its confines of what it's trying to be. A nice little puzzly filler game. The uptime of the game is generally good as well. Yeah, there is a little bit of scope for AP. But not a tremendous amount, because ultimately you are only building a 4x4 grid here, but you are trying to place things optimally, of course, and trying not to undermine your scoring. But I think that min-maxing has a cap on it, and it isn't going to be a game that's going to have a massive amount of analysis paralysis and keep you from being engaged in the game. Replayability is pretty good. I mean, at least in terms of the different objectives and things. Each game you're going to be going for different things, as I mentioned. You're going to have a different bunch of cards coming out, obviously reacting to what's available from the drafting pool here. You always have that option, if nothing's good here, you can choose to take from the deck, and of course always fall back on your deck of cards, so you're not just subject to the card draw. The interaction in the game is a bit of a double-edged sword in this one. So on top of all the restrictions here, you're going to find yourself looking for very particular cards at times, and sometimes there'll be one card in the middle that you really need, and if it's not your turn, inevitably somebody is going to take that card from under your nose. But so that kind of ties into my thoughts on this one. Do I prefer this one as a solo experience or as a multiple player experience? I actually think I prefer this as a solo game, because you can really focus on your own thing here, nothing else messing you up too much in terms of people taking cards you want, which would normally be fine. That doesn't bother me too much, but because there are so many restrictions on your own board anyway, that's just a layer too much, and has adds maybe a slither too much frustration into the game, whereas without that it would have been a bit nicer, but still has a good amount of restriction, a good amount of puzzle to work out anyway. Aesthetically, I think the game looks pretty nice. I like these kind of water muted cards. They look really cool when they're set up. Really well painted and illustrated here. All the scoring objectives are pretty well explained. You can't really misinterpret them. So yeah, I've got no issues at all. It's just a bunch of cards really, and the card stock is more than adequate. So no issues at all with the production. Just a bunch of cards. And the theme, I suppose, is quite pleasant as well. You've got this just making your little village green. Tried to make the most visually appealing garden, which very inviting, and nobody is going to get really turned off by this theme or setting. And the setup and teardown time as well, just smash a bunch of cards down and you're pretty much good to get going. No real hiccups or speed bumps in getting this onto the table or from packing it away. The progression, I think, is generally good as well, because the more cards you're placing, you are really backing yourself more and more into a corner and leaving your options, again, just kind of filtering your options down to points where you don't really have much say in what you're going to play from now on. You need very specific cards as the game develops in order to get the most out of your scoring objectives. And comparison-wise, there are a lot of these puzzly style games as you're trying to do this kind of thing. However, I do think this one's quite a nice one. Again, it does have that extra layer on being restrictive, and which you probably expect from a designer like Peer Sylvester, who's kind of not known for these kind of games, but his games do normally have some kind of tightness and some kind of, again, more restrictions to them that make you feel like you're in a straitjacket at times. But yeah, overall, I think this is a perfectly pleasant game. Again, there are a lot of games like this out there. This is a good one. I'm not sold massively on the fact that you do have to abide so tightly by these restrictions, and why normally I think that's a good thing. It's sometimes left me a bit too frustrated in this one. Now, that being said, I would happily play this one pretty much any time because it is so quick. It does feel satisfying when you do pull these placements off and do map up things perfectly. It's not a massively scoring game, at least not for me, because I'm not very good at it. But it is what it is really. It's not great. It's certainly not bad. It's just one of those I said, a mediocre filler game that does what it does pretty well. So if you're looking for something a bit different, or something puzzly that anybody can really understand, but still want it to be not so loosey-goosey to the point where you're showered in points, then check out Village Green, particularly as a solo experience. So normally I'm not a solo gamer, but this is certainly one that I would whip out in a 15-minute game on my own to see what I can do with the cards that are available to me. So that concludes my thoughts on Village Green. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you found it useful or at least somewhat entertaining, then please hit like and consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Additionally, if you wish to support the show, because I am a one-man operation and I don't get any support from publishers, then please consider backing on Patreon at patreon.com/chairman of the board, where you can back for as little as £2 per month. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.